Hey there, listener. Corey Andrew Powell here, and I'm excited to share that Motivational Mondays is now sponsored by BetterHelp. Feeling stressed or anxious? Well, BetterHelp brings you online therapy that's convenient and affordable. NSLS members get 50% off your first month of BetterHelp when you sign up at betterhelp.com/NSLS or click the link in the show notes. Start your journey to better mental health today. Hello, everyone. I'm Corey Andrew Powell. Welcome to a special Hispanic Heritage Month Rewind episode of Motivational Mondays presented by the NSLS. Today, we're going to celebrate the incredible contributions and stories of 6 inspiring Hispanic leaders who've graced our podcast. From the realms of mental health advocacy, real estate and skincare, to community building, entrepreneurship, and the arts, these guests have left an indelible mark on their respective fields. So join us as we revisit some of the most motivational moments from Stephanie Shojai, Jose Arcosta, Shadil Estepan, Hugh Jones, Angel Martinez, and Peter Orozco. First up, we have Stephanie Shojai, a powerhouse in the South Florida real estate market. Stephanie has made significant strides in her field, and in this clip, she shares her stories of how her childhood experiences taught her to embrace her Colombian culture.
I still remember being that young girl and my mom cooking, for example, let's say bacalao or platanitos and, all the food that I would eat. And I would be like, Mom, the house smells like Spanish food. My friend's coming over. She can't know that our food doesn't smell like her food. And my mom it was like a dagger to her heart, but you're little and I wanted to be understood and respected. And like coming to my house and smelling my Hispanic food was not cool. Because you were going to maybe go to school and like bully me or, oh, her house smells like Spanish food. Our food has a strong smell. Versus now I look back and I'm like, why did I even care? Her parents were like making pizza and like
okay. Like you should have been like selling mama's plates, honey. Yes. But like, you know how enterprising you are. You should have been like making Stephanie's kitchen.
I wish I could go back so much and speak to that, the young version of me, like the 5-6-year-old that had such a tough time. But I would speak to her, but I don't think I would change anything because it really made me exactly who I am today. Like I said, it really was my superpower. I still try to find that moment that like changed everything for me, where I was like, I'm going to stop hiding it and my life's going to change if I just start embracing it.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah, you don't want to change your past because you're not guaranteed that your current outcome, which you really love, it would be the same. Yeah. But you do bring up an interesting point. And I've spoken to many different people from different countries, but primarily my friends from Santo Domingo, for example, or Argentina, or different countries that are Latin speaking.
Colombia, none? Colombian? Am I your Colombian friend?
Well, not with this particular problem, but I do know a lot of Colombians. And in fact, I will just put this out there, and I hope that all my other friends won't kill me. I happen to think that in the novellas, Colombians speak the best Spanish.
Oh, no, it's not just novellas. It's not
just in general, right? You think in general? Okay. I'm going to get so much hate mail now, but that's just how it is. But they did say to me, though, there were times where they were resentful. As they were growing up as teenagers, as you said, not having the foresight yet to understand the dynamics. They had this love-hate. They were angry almost at their parents at a certain point for they can't be like other American kids. Or when they show up, they don't have the proper documentation because of, and it creates a really, I guess, a difficult dynamic. But are you and your parents, were you still close to your parents through that? And how did you get through it?
Corey, let me tell you something that I don't think many people know unless they're my close friend. I actually am so close to my parents that I chose to not have a wedding. I wanted a honeymoon, a month-long honeymoon. There's reasons as to why I didn't want a wedding. I had keep my circle very small, and it was like, oh, if I want to have a wedding, I want it to be something big, and I couldn't come up with a list. Anyway, that side story. I'm so close. I took them on my honeymoon because thank God they're so close to my husband, but I wanted that memory to be stuck and engraved in me for life. So I wanted to experience it with them. So we traveled abroad, Dubai, did a lot of fun things, and I took them with me. So to answer your question in short, I am beyond close to my parents. They are my best friends. I travel with them all the time. I am exactly who I am. I literally probably last night reminded them, like, thank you so much. I'm so happy to who I've become. But yes, to go back to what you're saying, I gave them I raised hell at the house. I didn't like the way it smelled. Because of the food. I hated that my mom could never be a chaperone because she didn't speak English. I hated that my dad couldn't come in and say what he does at work because he couldn't speak English. There was so many things that I'd be like, this is the pickup line for the kids that come out of school at 3, and you're in the line that comes at 4 because you can't read the sign. And it was constant. I was just so mad. But I feel like they just did such a great job with me and my sisters and like teaching us and calming us down. And they understood that it was hard. It was hard on us. I had to obviously take English lessons and writing and a lot of things. They were there through it all, and they pushed us. But thank God for them. They stuck it through. And my mom actually has blonde hair, blue eyes. So everybody thought she was super American. And then it was even worse when they would try to speak to her, and she was like, no hablo inglés. Like,
yeah. Or I would have thought she was like faking because she doesn't want to like talk to people, right? Blonde.
No, she never faked. She would always be like, soy colombiana y no hablo inglés.
It's a good defense mechanism. You don't want to be bothered with people. Like, I don't speak English.
Yeah.
No, but I think that's amazing because the irony there is because of the sacrifice and because of their decision, which, is a difficult one for many immigrants to make, to leave a country under those conditions. And then at the end of the day, despite all that, the end result is they raised a highly successful daughter. And so, and your sibling as well, who you said is also doing well. So there's a lot to be said just for good parenting, no matter what the language is. I do want to ask you, though, as I mentioned about your humble beginnings. So how did you get interested in real estate, and when did you get your start?
Okay. Love this question. So I went to school for marketing, and ever since I was a little girl, I would always be drawing diamonds and cars. My parents didn't know where it came from. I think it was just in me that I had this like relentless pursuit to find greatness. I went to school. My dad was nibbling here and there on a little bit of development, like one little apartment here and there in like little cities in Fort Lauderdale. And he told me one day, like, I'm losing so much money and having to list the property with a realtor and then the realtor sell it. So I'm losing a lot of commission. And I said, Dad, why don't I take the test, the real estate test, and I'll list it for you and I'll sell it for you and I'll give you right back all the commission. I want nothing, but I'm going to take the test. And my dad looked at me and he's like, really? You're going to do that for me? And I think the class is a month. And I said, it is a month for the people that want to take a month. But if you know your daughter wants everything now. And there's a class that's a week. So I'm going to take that week class. I'm going to take off everything, no school, no nothing. And I'm going to dedicate to passing the test. Gold Coast offers the 1 week class. I took the class, passed the test. I mean, I had the license within like as fast as you can get it, fingerprints, everything, all was submitted. I got it. I knew nothing. I went and got my license with a company. I remember walking in and I was like, I need to list something. And they're like, you have a listing already? I'm like, it's my dad's and I need to list it right away. And nobody really wanted to help. But I was like, you're either going to help me or I'm going to find someone else that will, or I'm going to Google it, but I'm going to list it. Fast forward, I listed it. I helped my dad. He sold it. And he was so happy. And I knew that I was doing something to help him, which made me happy. And then I was negotiating this deal, it's small deal. And I remember the broker on the other end was a white male with a lot of experience. And he looked at me like, this girl has no idea. She's super young. Her dad's her client. It was like, treated me so poorly, but I loved it. And one of the things that drives me so much is being underestimated. It's just, I love it. I feel like it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I just tried harder. I got the deal done and I was like, this is what I like. So I stuck around with marketing, finished that, and then continued on with real estate.
Next up, Jose R. Costa, a successful entrepreneur and author. He shares his insights into business and leadership that have guided many in their pursuits of entrepreneurial dreams.
People mistakes, right? Number one, hiring too quickly and hiring potentially the wrong person for the job. Hiring people that have worked with you in the past. I think there's a healthy balance between bringing people you trust into the organization and overdoing that, because then you alienate the other people within the organization. So if you and I work together at Burger King and we turn around and hire a bunch of Burger King people, how does that make the Whistle Express team feel that we have like our own Burger King club within our organization. So that healthy balance between new ideas, new talent from outside of your network, I think it's one mistake that many leaders make. I've done it in the past. I go to a new company and I bring an alumni club, and it's not necessarily good. It's healthy with a balance. I think another mistake is you kind of gravitate to your growth where you came from. So I grew up through marketing and operations. And I tend to gravitate my decision making. I lead with operations and marketing, which could be good or bad depending on what business challenge you're trying to solve. So having a lot of different perspectives is very important. Hiring people with different backgrounds. I love hiring immigrants, to be honest with you. I call it the fire in the belly. They just come, and I'm one of them, right? They come with this reason to prove that they can make it in the best country in the world, and they're going to work harder. They have that fire in the belly. They need to show their family and their friends back home that they were able to make it in America.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you brought that up, because you do talk about that in the book. I love when you begin by talking about being a little boy and seeing your father have that development from like the small office to finally becoming like a larger, I guess, marketing exec, if you will. And then, you having to then go to the U.S. and have this experience as an immigrant, having to start, I think you were going to graduate school, I believe it was.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's where you start. But you had that same, that fire that you're talking about, because, when you leave your country and have to make it in another country with a completely different construct of living and everything.
Yeah.
I do agree. I think, and let's face it, I mean, America obviously is the country built on immigrants, right? The hard work, blood, sweat, and tears of immigrants. So a little strange that some people don't seem to appreciate that today in this country. Yes. But I love that you are bringing it back to that and making a point of hiring them. And so you're seeing success with that.
Yes. Also, going back to your question of mistakes we make, you kind of, the more you climb the hierarchical ladder and you're gaining titles and responsibility and salary, sometimes you lose texture and contact with the front line. And I make a very strong effort to get out and be in the stores as much as I can. And having that connective tissue to the front line is very important. Also, surrounding yourself with, I call it player coaches. A lot of people are chasing titles and they want to be chiefs. But then you need a lot of hard workers that are actually going to do the job. So finding that balance between experience, talent, and fire in the belly.
Again, I gotta just say your book is it's not a very long book. It's a short read, but you have so much in this book, like, and so many things that I relate to. And what you just said was one of them. Another story for me is I recall like just, being just driven and focused. And I had another colleague who was like, I have to report to the CEO at every job that I have. I must report to the CEO. And I said, well, I really don't care about that. I care about doing the great work for the job that I'm hired for, and that we're going to pay me the salary that I agreed to, and everything else will fall into place. So I love that you talk about the chasing the title thing, because I think if you're so busy chasing the title, you're missing out on the journey along the way of that you're supposed to be learning. Isn't that part of sort of the trade-off, right?
100%. And I think generationally, millennials and the younger generations coming behind Gen X are very much impatient. They want that sense of they want things immediately, right? And sometimes you need time in the kitchen, and you need experience in order to get promoted. I think there's also a concept in the book that is very important, and this is an anecdote, a personal story. When I was at Yum Brands, I got a call from the chief people officer globally at Burger King. And I wasn't looking for a job. I flew down to Miami from Louisville, Kentucky. I interviewed, great chemistry, great conversation. And then he calls me and he's like, Jose, great meeting you, but you're not a fit, but we're not going to make you an offer. And Corey, I didn't hear from him for 7 years, but I had saved his phone number in my phone. And for 7 years, I didn't talk to him. And he called me 7 years later and he said, do you remember me? And I said, I do. I saved your phone number. What's going on? He said, well, 3G Capital just bought Burger King and they're taking the company private. And I need someone to run Latin America and the Caribbean and to work closely with me in the transformation of the region. Would you be interested? And I think that's an example of not burning bridges, keeping relationships over time, and just being open to network. Networking is so important.
Shadil Estepan joined us from the Born This Way Foundation. That's the organization began by Lady Gaga. Shadil is very passionate about her advocacy for mental health and youth empowerment, and she works tirelessly to create a kinder and braver world.
While on tour and in conversation with hundreds and thousands of young people globally, we're hearing several common threads. And it's just that young people are searching for validation and support and resources. And these stories essentially became a movement through Born This Way Foundation. And in 2012, when Lady Gaga and her mom, Cynthia, started Born This Way Foundation, the mission was to support youth mental health and work with young people to build a kinder and braver world, true to those conversations that helped spark the movement.
And I know it's something too that Lady Gaga herself has spoken about in general, and she's been really supportive and a part of that. I think right now we have a lot of statistics too that show that there's, I think for one of the largest segments of the population ever are young people who are really depressed and committing suicide. And there's a big suicide rate amongst youth. Now, some of the programs that you guys work on, I guess, really help to alleviate some of those issues that these young people are dealing with. So what are some of the programs? I know you have some various different ones. There's like one I believe was called the Channel Kindness, for example. How does that go to combat mental wellness for young people?
Thank you so much for asking, Corey. And yes, I think to your note, I really want to underscore that we're seeing a lot of data that's sharing that younger generations are experiencing a mental health crisis and are in need of mental health resources. And thankfully, young people also highly prioritize their mental health. And younger generations, I'm seeing, are also much more willing to talk about their mental health than other generations. And so while the stigma is heavy and the crisis is weighing in, it really feels hopeful because young people are driving the change. And that's a lot of what Born This Way Foundation does, is work with young people to understand how we can best equip them to support that desire to better communicate about mental health and to foster mental wellness in their communities and beyond. And so Born This Way Foundation has worked on several programs. I'm so grateful that you've asked. You mentioned Channel Kindness. Channel Kindness is an online storytelling platform where we work directly with young storytellers who are sharing about the kindness and the bravery that they're experiencing in their communities to uplift the stories of essentially uplifting the stories that they're seeing in their communities. And I had just a little mental block only because I'm thinking about all of the different stories I've read on Channel Kindness just this year. Anyone who's interested in learning or reading these stories can visit channelkindness.org. And one of the ones that comes to mind is a piece that's underscoring National Hispanic Heritage Month and really focuses in on what we can do as young Latinos and Latinas supporting our Spanish-speaking community.
I love that you brought that up because, you mentioned how past generations were less likely or more reluctant to talk about mental health and mental wellness. I know for me in an African American household, it was always like when I was younger, something that, I mean, like quite literally, I would hear in my house, "Oh, that's white people stuff. We don't. That's what white people do." Like literally, there was like the stigma that like only white people sought therapy, and that might have been the case during past generations, maybe because of socioeconomics or whatever. But you raise a good point though, because there are various reasons why different communities might not even really talk about mental wellness. So it's great that you're sort of creating a platform where you're breaking down some of those barriers, some of those walls where ethnicity doesn't matter, gender doesn't matter. The mental wellness is really just all that you're focusing on, correct?
What's really important is to create a space where young people of all backgrounds can feel seen, heard, and validated, and where they can find the resources that are otherwise not accessible to them. And so we know through our Kind Communities research findings that we just released that young people, especially in Black, Indigenous, and communities of color, people of color, are disproportionately experiencing kindness in their communities. And so I think what that tells us is that we have an opportunity to instill kindness and to further encourage conversations about how we can better be there for one another. And one of the resources that I didn't mention before that I'd love to lean into, if I may, is our Be There certificate. So Born This Way Foundation partnered with jack.org, and together we're sharing the Be There certificate, which is a free self-paced online mental health course available in English, French, and Spanish with original content filmed and written for each of those languages. And I think you mentioned a little bit about your culture and your upbringing and sort of not having the invitation of talking about mental health growing up. And I definitely I concur. It's something that I didn't grow up with, having the language and the literacy around having conversations about mental health. And when earning my Be There certificate and navigating through the different examples, I'm like walking through what a text message example between a hypothetical text message example between me and my sister could look like, or what a mom and a son have experienced in a conversation about mental health, and really leaning into the guiding golden rules, which some of them invite you to learn how to better show that you care, or what it means to truly listen non-judgmentally, and some of the responses that we can have in those scenarios. And I think for me, what was really helpful is to engage in those conversations and practice it through the Be There certificate course in a low stakes environment and proactively, so that because it will inevitably come up in our lives when we are engaging in these seemingly uncomfortable conversations with the people that we love, or even our colleagues, we can feel better equipped and even much more confident to have and lean into those conversations.
Hugh Jones is a talented actor originally from Texas, now thriving in New York City. Hugh's journey in the entertainment industry is a testament to his resilience and his passion for the arts and his connection to his Mexican culture.
Well, I'm a walking contradiction. Everything from my name to my color to the way that I talk. When I open my mouth, people expect me to sound a certain way. Or, all these stereotypes that people pin on us. That we pin on each other. I'm guilty of it too.
Yeah.
So it's important to show the other side of a person's color. Like a lot of Americans gag because I used to get made fun of in Monterrey, in Mexico, because I was too dark. And the wealth holding elite in Mexico are light skinned, blue eyed. They're all fair.
Novella people.
Exactly. Turn on Univision, Telemundo. They'll be there. So the school that I went to, it was a nice English speaking school. And I used to get made fun of like crazy. And Americans, they don't understand the colorism in Mexico, or that there are even light-skinned people in Mexico.
Right.
Like the guy you helped with the Amex card, I'm sure was a fair skin.
Yeah, he looked like a white guy with a tan, basically.
Right. Which is what's so funny about my last name. Everybody Jones, but you're Mexican. That's impossible. Europe colonized, or a lot of Europeans moved to Mexico. They have all sorts of last names, from Schoening to Bauer, whatever.
Yeah.
And in 1990, Miss Universe was Mexican. Her name was Lupita Jones.
That's so funny.
Lupita
Yeah.
Nyong'o's from Mexico.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? So these are the stereotypes. Like, and what hurts so much, and I try not to be so critical against Americans, because I'm guilty of similar things. Mexico is right here. There's no reason to be so aloof about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I understand Americans only care about themselves and their personal life. But, if I can change that, I will.
Yeah. No, and, we've had conversations, where it'll start in a chat and then we'll have to kind of go off to the DM because, because we don't want to throw too much fire into the, into the conversation. But, I agree with you on that. To me, Mexico, being even associated with Mexico and Puerto Rico, for example, is an honor. It's a privilege that America would have those relationships, especially Puerto Rico being a Commonwealth. When there was a lot of ire with a particular president who, came under fire for how he dealt with Puerto Rico in the storm, I thought, that's one of the most beautiful places on earth. And it's a Commonwealth of America. We should be protecting that beautiful place and those people who are our people. And it's amazing how just some people did not see it that way. They still see it as us and them. I'm like, no, they are American. And so I think maybe it's America. The biggest problem with America is like the lack of education as far as like how geography works and how, the social constructs of geography. I think that's our biggest problem. And you are from a state we're not from, but you lived in a state where just last week, I might add, I think a teacher got fired for like the Diary of Anne Frank, a particular adaptation. So what are your thoughts on, because it ties right into what we were saying, what are your thoughts on this attempt to sort of revisionize history and in many cases erase it?
So I think Republicans tapped into something really effective, and that's apathy. Nobody cares. If it doesn't affect you directly, you don't care. If it's somebody that doesn't share your religion, your skin color, your nationality, your immigration status, we just don't care about these issues. So they're playing into that. Right now, we're so divided that if they go after trans people, Black people, gay people, brown people, no one's going to stand up for them. And they know it. So they can attack history. They can attack voting rights. They can attack abortion. The gays didn't stand up and defend women. Nobody did. Women didn't. Like, what hurts the most in Iran, in the country of Iran, a woman was killed by the police, by the moral police, for not wearing her hijab correctly. The country fell apart. They fought for their women. They called it a feminist revolution. That was because of over a hijab. What did we do for abortion? We didn't tear up the streets. And that's the same for other issues. So they know what they're doing. They know we're not going to turn up for each other. So it's proving effective.
Right. So you're saying you feel like sometimes the most vulnerable groups are targeted, and in this instance, the ones you mentioned, because there's a sense that no one's really going to stand up for them anyway. So we can really, it's fair game just to go and
we don't stand up for each other. I haven't seen any. I haven't seen any other people other than Latin people in immigrant demonstrations. For example, like regular Americans don't care, and that's for so many issues. And I haven't been to a gun rally. They massacred children in Texas. We're just
right. So you're putting yourself. You're putting yourself.
Yeah, I'm guilty of it. Yeah. I can point fingers all day, but I have my flaws too. I do it too. And it's just, and what breaks my heart every time I go down to Texas and I tell people, oh my God, they're taking your voting rights. Oh my God, your trans rights, your women's rights, your gay rights, your Black rights. Every time I talk to people, nobody cares. It's always like, man, that stuff is so negative. I'm just going to focus on me and my family. And, and that's it, because they do whatever they want. And I'm like,
Well, see, but I think what happens in that case, and I think we've talked about this too, I know we have a few times, the disenfranchisement happens, right? Where you start to, certain ethnic groups who they feel like their voice is not heard, or nothing will change. And there's a point where they just start to feel that nothing they do will matter because they continually see that it seemingly doesn't matter. It hasn't helped them. It hasn't changed. So I think what you and I have to do is sort of still keep the optimism there and try to continue just to tell people why it's important, right? Because, we've talked about that too. We're like, we can't just keep telling everybody, calling people out without trying to remedy, well, why are they not connected? What can we do?
I do that a lot. I'm always, and why don't people do this? Why don't, and it's like, and nobody cares. Like once I started scolding people, it's over. Like nobody's trying to hear that.
Right.
But I get so frustrated, but yeah.
No, I know. Well, yeah. And I always argue too. I was like, I saw literally people about to tear the streets apart when Beyonce lost Album of the Year.
Right.
And
right. And you see it for sports all the time too.
Yeah, people were like,
let somebody lose.
Yeah. But when it comes to like the other issues about your own civil liberties and your rights, it's like I don't see as much fervor for the cause for that. So I know. Listen, we can go on.
Yeah.
Forever about that. But
I'm a lighthearted, fun guy. But when it comes to politics, I'm just like, but no, because
Well, I think people of color, marginalized groups, I think we have a lot more invested in that conversation. So we do tend to be more passionate. And I will call out, I will say that we did have nicely and luckily, and I was so excited to see when the George Floyd situation happened, we did see in that instance, all around the world.
It gave me hope. We can do it. It's
people look different. They were, I think other people who weren't Black were saying we're tired of it. And that's what has to happen, right? We step outside of our own group and care about what happens to other people as well. Yeah.
I need to go fight for Muslim people. I need to go fight for Asian people, anybody. Like, that's what it takes.
Yeah. Angel Martinez is a leading expert in skincare and the founder of a renowned spa. Her dedication to wellness and beauty has helped countless individuals achieve healthier and glowing skin, as well as building their inner confidence.
I started my business about 8 years ago, but I've been in the skincare industry for 17 years now. And I think a few people were kind of nudging me like, you should start a podcast, because I'm very unfiltered on my Instagram and my TikTok. So I'm like, no, I kept pushing it off. But I'm like, you know what? I have a lot to say about some of these filters and some of these movie stars that are leading these young girls. And not only that, I think also my life in general, just as a single mom. So the way that I came up with It Hurts to Be Pretty is that I've been through a lot to get to where I'm at. And it was painful and it was hard. So that's where the hurt comes from. And then when you're at work, you got to be on, you got to be presentable, and you got to present your best self. But also what I do in this room hurts. Microneedle, lasers. So I just thought
physically, like it really hurts, like physically, right?
Yeah, it hurts. We need numbing cream. So I just thought all around, it hurts to be pretty. And I'm able to talk about my life, my journey, and also all things skincare.
Well, it's interesting too, because I love that you brought up the Hollywood aspect, because it's really rare, but it does happen where I love that certain celebrities, female celebrities, will really lash out at a magazine for over photoshopping them. Yes. Or, because they know that young women especially are looking to them to sort of emulate what they are. And if you're creating this sort of like impossible standard, it's really creating such a disparity to young women. So if that's sort of your perspective on that as well.
Well, I have a daughter who's 22 and I feel like, I have 3 kids.
You look 22. What'd you have her you had her when you were a fetus, like apparently.
No, she's actually my baby. I have 2 boys and a little girl. And I feel like with my daughter, for her to see these as examples, I'm like, and I'm telling her she's beautiful the way she is. She doesn't need surgery. She doesn't need this and that. But yet this is what she sees on a daily basis. Now, listen, it's a fine line, because this industry is that, right? Like Botox, it is the fillers, the plump lip. But I also think that there is also body dysmorphia. unrealistic expectations, such as the filters, because we're all guilty. In fact, in 2023, I actually made a vow to never use a filter on any of my photos or my videos that when I go live or anything like that. So it was hard at first because you're used to seeing this matted, like, you know what I mean? No
Everything
flaw.
is smooth. Yeah.
And it becomes a little bit of an addiction. So, I definitely don't like when movie stars definitely try to say they've never had anything, because I can list all the things that they've had. But then I also appreciate the Alicia Keys and the Pam Anderson who are like, listen, no makeup. This is my glowing skin, and take it for what it is.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing, that whole Pam Anderson phenomenon that happened when she went to that show in Paris, makeup free? And I have to tell you, quite honestly, I thought she's never looked more beautiful in her life. Like that plain face where you can just really see just the character. It wasn't covered with all the paint, right? And look, I was a model booker in New York City for years. So I also get that side of it too, the beauty aspect, the commerce aspect. But you're right. I think when it's used to sort of like dictate a standard to the world, where most women have the antithesis of that body type, that skin type, it does become potentially dangerous. So I love that, you are speaking out about that. Now, when it comes to also your own personal journey, though, was it something that you said people were always telling you, oh, you should start a podcast because of your outspokenness? But with beauty specifically, was that the passion that you were speaking about, or you just mean in general, and you had a side passion for beauty that you now turned into your platform?
Yeah, starting my business 8 years ago, my vision was bigger than skincare. It was for single moms. So I have a Single Mom Strong Foundation. I have a women's event that I host every year. So I wanted beauty to be much more than the outer. And I connect with my clients for the last 17 years. I've been in Denver, Colorado. So I wanted it to be more than just the outer, more of a relationship, because I have women in here who are crying, who are getting divorced, who are cheating or getting cheated on, right? Like there's so many different walks of life that come through here. And for me, I just wanted to be able to connect. So with my podcast, not only am I able to tell my story because I came from nothing. I started my business with no sugar daddies or no loans.
Right.
I'm happy to say that I have debt free. Like I don't owe anybody anything. And, building your empire takes a lot of work. And so I just I think, especially now with the beauty industry being saturated, you can find a med spa in every corner. It's like a church now, like they're in every corner. And I wanted to make sure that I hold to my values in this industry, because it is looked upon as vain and vanity and all that stuff. I wanted it to be more of a community. And so I do things like the single mom and the women's events where I bring women together. And I think I just did that being a single mom and wanting community more than just, here, can you buy a facial, right? Like it's so much more than that for me.
And finally, Peter Orozco is my very inspiring fellow team member here at the NSLS. He is a fervent advocate for community building, and Peter's commitment to fostering strong, supportive communities is truly remarkable. Here's Peter in his own words.
A really basic overview. First, I really encourage you to come and do a success networking team. That's where you really get to know and experience this like life-changing community of practice, this learning community. But what happens in a success networking team is there's about 4 to 6 people in a group. Each individual in that group has their own goal that they want to accomplish. And so you say the goal to the group. Hopefully it's based on the SMART model: specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, timely. The R's can change: realistic, rewarding. And you say that goal to the group, and then the rest of the group gives you ideas, feedback, network. So someone may have had a similar goal, gives you ideas on how to accomplish that. Someone might have someone who's in that field and will connect you to that person. In my example, when I said I wanted to get back into school full time and I lost health insurance, someone in that group had an uncle who had lost health insurance, and I got to be able to connect with them and figure out how I get health insurance. And so everyone does that in the group, shares feedback, connects with each other. And we do that 3 times to accomplish a goal. at the end of that. So that's a little bit of the success networking team. There's more that goes into that.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I hear like nothing but great ideas come from that, and people really get to sort of implement dreams and ideas they didn't really think about maybe putting forward. I think I participated a couple times in some exercises, and someone said, well, what's your goal? And I'm like, I want to be on the Tamron Hall show as a guest. And I was just kidding. As a contributor to the Tamron Hall show. And someone in the S&T group was like, well, let's figure it out. How do we do it? Who do we know in TV? Who can we call? Like, it's like the brain starts working and people really start to help you with these goals. So it's really, really important that, people take an opportunity to put some of these plans in motion. So what strategies do you think you would use, or do you use actually, to help employ students, like young people, to stay focused and maybe see beyond today? Because when you're young, I think you're not really looking to a future. I mean, how do you relate to a college age student or younger people that, what they're doing today is actually really, really aligned with tomorrow?
Yeah, that's a great question. The way I like to think about this is how big is your identity? I see a lot of people who, when you ask who they are, or who they tell you who you are, they usually give you a title or a position, or they tell you about their favorite sports team, and that's beautiful. That's a part of who we are. But when that's all you are, like I'm a Mets fan, and everything Mets is all I do, or I'm just a title in my position, or for college students, I'm an undergrad, I'm a freshman. That's who I am, or I'm just my major. I call that a small identity. And the reason why it's small is because you're focused on that one thing, and you start to lose the connection to everything else in your environment that's going on that can open you up to possibilities that you may have not been aware of because your perspective was so narrow. Leadership and leadership development is partly physical, right? We need to be healthy. We need to move around, do stuff like that. We need to be in environments, but it's mostly a change in perspective. The way you see the world needs to change and needs to expand. And so what I encourage people to do is expand your identity. Have a cosmic identity, if you can really expand it that far, because it really starts to connect you to other people. If you're giving orders just from your own point of view, like, I'm a manager of chapter leader development. And so I'm focused on my KPIs and all that. I'm giving orders just based on that. I lose the connection with the people I'm working with and the students I'm working with. But if I expand my perspective, not only am I manager of chapter leader development, but I'm here to share a story with people on how to change their lives, because I had a life-changing experience. And students, no matter what your age is, whether you're brand new to college or you're coming back to school, you have an opportunity to change your life if you open up your perspective and expand it. This is something that always just knocks me off my chair. Did you know, and this is scientifically proven, that we have hydrogen and helium atoms in our bodies that were there at the beginning of the universe? We have atoms in our bodies that are billions of years old. And when you start to expand yourself to that kind of cosmic identity, you start to see connections to other people. And it's no longer about a specific task or, about solving a specific problem. It's about building community. It's about learning to live in this moment, in this present moment, and seeing how expansive it is. And that are small problems right now. I'm going to be late to work, or, I need to send that email. Though it's important at the time, it's not the most important thing when you start to expand and see a wider point of view.
To all our featured guests and everyone out there who share in their Hispanic heritage, well, we want to just say thank you for watching and happy Hispanic Heritage Month.